How do you know?
Well, you have to either buy organic, buy products that say non-GMO voluntarily, buy products that are listed on our shopping guide, which is at healthiereating.org, or avoid the at-risk ingredients. And on the shopping guide, we actually have a list of the derivatives from the soy and corn, which you may not know are from soy and corn, like maltodextrin and dextrose and high fructose corn syrup and lecithin. So you actually have to take some time, which is why our new 30-day no GMO challenge is there. So it starts with like a spring-inspired clean-out of your cupboards of the GM brands and then helps you step-by-step replace them with healthier non-GM products. And as you'll hear, a lot of people get very inspired to switch to non-GM when they realize what's happened to the animals, for example, both the livestock and the laboratory animals when they eat the stuff.
Are tomatoes GMOs?
No, they used to be, but they were taken off the market because of consumer rejection. Likewise, potatoes used to be on the market. They were genetically engineered, but consumer rejection has knocked them out. So we see that the power is in consumers. In fact, when the tipping point of consumer rejection was achieved in Europe, and it started triggered by a February 16th, 1909 lifting of a gag order by a scientist who was working on a UK government grant to test GMOs. He found out they were inherently unsafe, caused massive damage to his rats, potentially precancerous cell growth, smaller brains, livers, and testicles, atrophy of the liver, damaged immune system. He was fired from his job after 35 years and silenced with threats of a lawsuit. When the gag order was lifted, that 750 articles were written about GMOs and health in Europe within a single month, and within 10 weeks, then all of the major food companies committed to stop using GM ingredients in Europe.
Jeffrey, I can't tell you when the last time I ate a juicy, ripe, red tomato that was homegrown. I can't remember it. I go to the store, and even though you say now these tomatoes aren't GMOs, they taste like cardboard to me.
Yes, they've been selected for processing, for long-distance shipping. So I would go for the traditional varieties, the heritage varieties, but not the kind of plastic stuff that we see today. In fact, I travel all over the world, and I find that the produce in other countries is often much more delicious than what we have in the United States because we have an industrialized food system. We also have some of the worst health statistics in the world, and there is a correlation. And the biggest correlation, I think, is the radical change in the food supply that started in 1996 when all these things happened. I mean, we've seen an explosion of allergies. In fact, soon after genetically modified soy was introduced to the UK, soy allergies skyrocketed by 50%. Since then, they have found that a known allergen in soy is up by as much as 7 times in genetically engineered soy, that there's a completely new allergen in the soy that was never anticipated, and even people getting a skin prick test can be reactive to the GM soy and not to the non-GM soy.
What are farmers saying about all this?
Well, farmers around the world are very, very upset with biotechnology, but not everyone, because a lot of times all of their information comes through the biotechnology industry. But I'll tell you one story. I was just in India, and there, farm workers throughout the subcontinent who are farming genetically modified BT cotton, the farm workers are getting rashes on their bodies and all sorts of allergic symptoms. Then they allow their livestock to graze on these cotton plants. These are cotton plants designed to produce their own pesticide called BT. When they allow the animals to graze on the BT plants after harvest, thousands of sheep, buffalo, and goats have died. In fact, the government of Andhra Pradesh issued a warning asking farmers not to allow livestock to graze on these cotton plants that are genetically engineered. Now, also, the farmers have been coerced to plant these genetically modified, more expensive seeds that require more of the chemicals, and an estimated 125,000 Indian farmers have committed suicide in the last 7 or so years, having invested in genetically modified cotton that did not yet even pay back the amount of money that they borrowed. And this is just a catastrophe.
Is it possible that these God-given natural seeds may all be gone one day and all we'll have is genetically modified seeds?
In 1999, Arthur Andersen Consulting, who was Monsanto's consultant, described how they worked with Monsanto executives and asked them to describe their ideal future in 15 to 20 years. And the executives described a world in which 100% of all commercial seeds were genetically engineered and patented, and Anderson Consulting worked backwards from that goal to create the strategy and tactics to achieve it. In the same conference, another biotech representative predicted that by 2004, 95% of all natural commercialized seeds would have been replaced by GMOs. It was only because the tipping point, based on consumer awareness of the health risks, spawned a European revolution. That's the only reason that we don't basically have a replaced nature with these patented genetically engineered monstrosities, which are actually very dangerous, and more information comes, even from government-funded studies now in Europe, showing the more you feed mice genetically modified corn, the less babies they have, the smaller the babies are, they're having immune system responses. It's getting very serious.
What happens if all seeds were Terminator seeds, you had to buy them every year, and all of a sudden the price of seeds became like gold? They just kept going up and up and up, or like the oil crisis when we had it.
Well, what's happening now is the biotech industry, like Monsanto is the largest seed company now in the world.
Right. And they're right up the street from where I am, by the way.
In St. Louis?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I talked to someone who is a former Monsanto scientist or a representative, and he said he came to work there because of the glowing words of former CEO of Monsanto, Robert Shapiro, who claimed how it would feed the world and help all these things. So he actually got up at a new employee orientation meeting and talked all about the words of Robert Shapiro and how great this was. A vice president pulled him aside afterward and said, wait a minute. What Robert Shapiro says is one thing. What we do is something else. He's the front man that tells the story. We don't even know what he's talking about. We're here to make money. And then he found out that Monsanto was feeding very potentially dangerous genetically modified plants to animals. He tried to get them to stop. He tried to blow the whistle. No one would listen. He was ostracized, and then he left the company. Between
1982 and 85, can't remember exactly the year, I was at their life sciences building out here.
Wow.
Which I assume is where they do a lot of this research, right?
Yes. In fact, I met another former scientist who was also working at Monsanto in the early 90s, and he said some of his colleagues were doing safety studies on the bovine growth hormone, which we talked about earlier. He said when they realized that the hormone that was increased is linked to cancer, those three refused to drink any more milk unless it was organic. And these were the people in Monsanto doing the safety studies on their own product.
Do you think most of them start off, and some of them still are, caring about humanity, and they get into this thinking they're doing something good?
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to some Monsanto scientists who, I challenge them and say,